this morning. I'm Mark Conter here at the Messer Financial Offices. Once again, we are going to proceed with our life insurance training module. Hopefully, you've been with us in the past. We thank you for that. And as we began this year, we tried to go in a different direction, hopefully to give you some guidance and the steps necessary to present and close life insurance sales. So again, from the very beginning in early March, we started. We actually did have a vendor at that time who shared with us some very important information as well as concepts. And if you have been with us from the beginning, great. If you haven't, well, you'll still have that opportunity to go back onto the Messer website to the Learning Center under the Agent Resources and listen to any of the previous webinars and review the information from the very beginning. And again, this year, what we were trying to accomplish was really to build a life insurance sales system. We did begin on the initial contact stage, where to find leads, how to find leads, and once you found a lead, how to make a contact. We did that both with some telephone scripts and some mailing samples so that you could also use those mailers as a call behind. And again, in an effort to develop leads if you're really fresh to the business. And some of those leads were also being developed with a client portfolio that you may have already established, perhaps in the health insurance industry, or perhaps even from the property and casualty side. So again, with that in mind, we went on to say our next step was to gather vital information. We tried to find out a little bit more about the family by using a health questionnaire. And that questionnaire also you'll find in the section that would actually be our third step in the sales process. We had in between there a little session with North American who brought to us how to discover that life insurance sales. So again, it kind of fit into the contact and making that initial move towards the client. After we found out a little bit about their health, though, we needed to find out how can we underwrite it? How's it going to be handled not only by the life insurance company, but also so that we as an agent would have a better way of determining the types of costs involved so that we would have accuracy in what we did. And so we went into a whole program on underwriting to help you get a little bit of a better handle of what's happening behind the scenes. After we had gathered that information and we knew enough about the client, we decided that we needed to do a little bit more investigation, and that's where we went into a needs analysis design. And again, on that, we were trying to find out more pertinent information other than the health side. And by doing that, we would begin to guide ourselves towards selecting the proper product. One of the things we did again was we stepped in with another carrier and we allowed them to give us some information on how to protect income, because the client that we were building was also going to have protecting their income as part of their program. After we had come into that phase, and that would allow us to go again towards the next step to do some case study work. And in doing the case study from that fact finder, we would be able to better determine the product. And once we knew the product, we would go forward in obtaining the quote. Now, when we went into the quoting process, we determined we were going to do two things. Number one, we were going to use a very simple quote tool, one that is available on the Messer website, and that would allow you to do the quoting for term products, as well as some basic UL product, the most basic, the guaranteed UL, which I will most commonly refer to in our work as the permanent term insurance, because that's basically what a guaranteed UL does. It allows them to fix a premium on a basic death benefit amount for their lifetime without really building a cash value, although it does have some cash value options available, which are usually going to be eaten up by the cost of insurance over time, so that it will still guarantee the death benefit, guarantee the fixed premium for that estate planning. So again, basic quoting done on that life insurance quote tool on the Messer website. And again, if you'll go back onto any of the webinars, if you missed it, you'll find the step-by-step process how to do that. Then we determined, hey, it's pretty important that we know a little bit more about it. So let's take a look at the WinFlex web program. And that is what we did actually in class number 8. And we did training on the WinFlex web. And again, we did some basic training. The WinFlex web is a wonderful tool that if you're not already using it, you need to go ahead and do that. And by doing that and registering, you're going to have the opportunity to do quoting for not only term products, but on the permanent products, on the whole life and on the universal life products that you may be appointed with carriers, which is again the most important thing, having appointments with the necessary carriers so that you can go on and produce those products that you need to have available. So again, that was in our step 8. And today we're really going into the 9th step, and that step is going to be preparing that actual presentation. And again, this is going to be our work behind the scenes, what we're doing before we physically go back and meet with that client. Now, again, one of the things that I stressed in the very early stages was that life insurance is not usually a one-call close. Life insurance should be an opportunity for you to build a relationship over a long-term period of time, which you're going to renew by going back and seeing your clients, maybe even as often as on an annual basis for a policy review, depending upon the type of a product that you've brought into their family. And by building that long-term relationship, it can't be done in just a telephone conversation or an online application. If that's all you're looking to do, well, you're going to have some life insurance sales, but you're never going to build yourself a clientele and a true life insurance business. So again, what we're trying to stress is the importance that you make a contact, you build a relationship by meeting with that client and finding out some pertinent information, which was again doing our fact finder, and then preparing the necessary information from what you did with that client, because primarily you did the most important thing, you listened. Very hard for sometimes many salespeople to recognize that it's more important to listen more and talk less. It's by listening that you find your client's needs. It's by listening that they tell you what they want. Hopefully, you're a professional that not only recognizes those needs, but you're able to develop perhaps some options and help them go through a learning experience, which will validate your professionalism and your ability to show them things that they need for their family when you go into that actual presentation, which again could be the second or perhaps even a third step before you're actually asking for the order. So again, it's not a one-step close. Now today, as we prepare the presentation, I do have my first polling question. And Miss Barbara, if you will add that to our screen, please. And I'm trying to open it up for myself here. There it is. Okay. So what we asked you to do was go on in there yourself and run some sample illustrations. Do some practice. That's pretty important so that you get familiar with the tools. I'm very pleased to see we've got over 80% of the attendees having voted at this point. So we'll go ahead and close the poll. But the greater majority of you, 75%, have gone ahead and run some sample illustrations. And for that, again, I'm going to thank you very much. That's really important for us to do. especially as we go further. Now, after we've had that first opportunity and run the first set of quotes, and again, if you need to, go back and use our tools. And what you're going to see here before you now is a sample off of, again, the very basic quote tool, and that was the Messer website. This was our male client, Mr. Thomas Anderson. If you go back, you'll see the actual questionnaire where, again, I stress the fact of please always get your client's exact date of birth. Again, I've stressed the importance of that and the frustration that I feel when I try to assist agents on a daily basis here at Messer. And again, I went through it this morning before I got on the webinar. I was talking with an agent and I asked her for the client's date of birth and she didn't have it readily available. I told her I was going to go ahead and work on my webinar and I would call her back so that she could gather that information because it's necessary to do a valid quote. Now again, on Mr. Anderson, whom we had a date of birth of January 1st of 92, it doesn't really show it here on the screen, but it does determine from that when we did the quote that he was 35 years of age. We also determined for Thomas, based on his health, that we were going to run him at a preferred non-tobacco rate. And again, I stressed in our earlier presentations to avoid the tendency to go to a preferred best in all cases, no matter how healthy your client is, because what we want to do is try to be as accurate as we possibly can and to give us enough space just in case there's an opportunity for the client to register even better and have a better rate than we're going to quote. So again, with Thomas, we had determined off of the information from the fact finder based on his current situation, based on his employment. He was making approximately $60,000 a year. We determined from his life value, from again other webinars that we had run, and again in the back you'll find those as you review them, even charts available for how to determine human life value based on income. And we said that we could probably insure Thomas for about $1.5 million. But what we chose to do here is work with a slightly less face amount of $1 million. Because of his age, because of the age of his children, and because we were looking primarily for protection for that household, we determined that a 20-year period of time would be an actual complement to what we needed. And by running that quote, we went in and we pulled 3 quotes. Now, some of this work that you'll do as an agent, you're going to make the determination of which carriers you like to work with based on how they've worked with you in the past. You might work with some of the guidance that we'll give you here at the Messer office. And I stress to you the importance of getting registered at the time with 3 primary carriers, one being American General, primarily with their benefits of the Partners Group, which is a division of American General. We talked about Transamerica. We talked about North American, whom we've also had on the webinars with us, primarily because in the case of all 3 of those carriers, they offered living benefits on their products that the other carriers did not offer. Now, again, there's going to be times you're going to want to use certain carriers for certain things. Primarily as an example, you have a client that's not willing to do an exam, doesn't like to have blood work, etc., and you're going to look for products that will eliminate or be what are called non-med products. Doesn't eliminate underwriting. There's still things going on behind the scenes, but it does mean that they do not have to go through the exam process of having blood and urine. So that might not be the right fit with the carriers we're talking about today, because again, what we did as we developed this relationship with this client was we brought to their attention in the early stages that there were new products out there today that were better concepts than the products of term life insurance of the past, what we determined to call the new life insurance. And again, ask them, what type of insurance they had. And if they had it, we reviewed their policies. And again, we were taking the step towards giving ourselves not only a more professional ability, but one of the most important techniques of making life insurance sales is making the right plans, doing the right things in advance, so that when you do go in to present the options to the family, you pretty much take them down a guided path that you've made the decisions on that are going to help them make a good decision for their future, but also take them in the direction that you control. So there is a control element going on behind the scenes that they don't have to know about, but that is in your possession, and that's when you're determining the best product and the best fit for them. So again, back on Thomas, we chose to select American General, the selected term product. We ran with basically a preferred non-tobacco rate. We also selected Transamerica, also a preferred product under a non-tobacco rate. And then you'll notice what I've done here, and this part of my control, is I've put in the Transamerica Trend Center LB. That's the living benefits. So what I'm saying is, this basic term product from American General, this basic term product from Transamerica does not offer the existing long living benefits opportunity. And again, as we're looking at it today, there's a difference in the premium. Now, the premium has its base rate, but we also determined based on our clients' needs that we wanted to have a waiver of premium benefit in case something should come up in their health conditions and cause for a disability, that all the premiums on that policy would be paid without them having to lose the policy during that type of a situation. So we added the WOP, which is again the waiver of premium on all three products. Now, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to present this information, and I'm going to go through the proper techniques that you're going to have available. What we're going to do on this next slide now is, again, we're going to talk about Louise. And when we did our studies and our research and looked into the circumstances with her, we also found that Louise was going to come in at 33 years of age. We also determined, because she is a working mother, she does have an income, and she is an active participant in the family's income and debt structure, that we were going to be able to find approximately $750,000 as a good face amount for the product for her. Now, again, when I ran the quotes, I was running these with her as preferred. And again, what I did was I went back to the same three companies. Now, when you run these quotes, it might happen that you get a quote with another carrier. As an example, Banner Life is oftentimes very competitive in their pricing, which we could put them into the mix, but number one, they do not offer living benefits. And number two, they have some extreme difficulty, in my opinion, of working through the underwriting process. So they're probably not a company that I put in my favorite category of life insurance companies. Anyway, also what I'm trying to do is keep things on a balanced stage. And by that I mean we ran the American General. Again, if we go back on the slide for Thomas, American General without benefits, Transamerica without benefits, Transamerica with long-term benefits, and we went ahead and we did the same thing with Louise. Okay? Now, also because Louise was working, we recognized that we needed the opportunity to work with the waiver of premium for her as well. So we added that in. And again, during our meetings, during our conversations, during our note-taking and fact-finding, the recognition that they do have 2 minor children. I believe they're 5 and 7, but I don't remember exactly. But anyway, we wanted to do some insurance on those children, but we weren't going to write individual policies. Primarily the reason that we weren't at this time was one of the determinations that we found in our fact finder was that our client would like to keep their monthly premium around $100. And I'm going to, again, in our instructions next week, we're going to go through presenting the information I'm sharing with you today and how we're going to be able to accomplish that goal, meet their needs, and still make that sale within the boundaries that they've given us. So this is the first step again in the quote. When you ran the quote on the quote tool, there was a tool you used to check off the ones you wanted to compare. Once we had the comparison, we printed that comparison sheet, and that's what you're seeing here today. This also you're going to find today. We have set up for you a little package. That package is going to be one of two, and you'll be able to go in there and download. I hope you have. If you have seen it on the side there, gone ahead and downloaded it already. So you'll have it available. Perhaps if you're at your desk that you can print it, that'd be excellent as well. But again, if you're not, download it and save it. And again, that's the Messer Life Presentation Bundle. Now, you're really going to need it next week, because what's going to happen here as I go on, and you're going to see in that bundle, you're going to have both Thomas and Louise's general information comparison. Also, what I've done is I've included the total presentation that you're going to need on the living benefits for American General Partners program, quality of life. And only because I'm aware, as we've put these slides together from these presentation pages, some of it you can see based on the typeset size, and some of it you can't. And that's why next week I hope you can, in advance, not only download this bundle, but also print it so you'll have it available as we begin to work with it. So this is a second part of our presentation as far as the numbers side, as far as getting down to the product and determination. And normally when you do any type of life insurance on a term basis, all you need is this, because the term doesn't really have a true illustration as any permanent product would. All it does is determine a face amount, a term of time, and a premium amount for that term of time. But today, as we again advance ourselves into the situation of working with the quality of life, we recognize the fact that there is more to it. It's not simply a term and a premium amount. So with that in mind, we're going to talk a little bit more about Thomas today, but I'm really going to save the most important parts of this for our work next week, because next week we're going to put ourselves in a position as if we're actually sitting in front of Thomas and Louise, and how we are going to present this information to them, allowing them to be able to make the decision, and how we'll go ahead and make that sale. So again, I apologize that as we go through the terms here, this page is still pretty clean, pretty clear. We've got Thomas in with that preferred non-tobacco rate. We've also got this set up for him with a death benefit, which we can see. And then again, as we get into it more, we're going to determine that it's not quite the quality that we need to see, which again, we're going to have that next week. Again, I apologize for the size of the print on the screen, but to get the job done, again, you're going to print these pages. But if you could read this fine print, you would see We've got a premium, we've got a waiver of premium, we've got an accelerated death benefit product, and we've got a total net premium that breaks out on a monthly value to the property that we've shown above. Now, I'm also going to ask you, and it's going to be part of your homework actually for next week, not only to print the material, but to go ahead and start reviewing it, because next week, again, as we present this to Thomas and Louise, we are the professional. We are presenting this in a fashion that's going to allow us to help them make a decision and provide enough information. Perhaps you will overwhelm them with your knowledge, but the fact is they are going to know you know your stuff, and you will, because it's all going to be here available to you. And by doing it that way, the accomplishment that I hope that you'll see is the one that I face so often when I do this myself, is I leave absolutely no room for any objectives at the end. Mine is pretty much a matter of going to the paperwork. And again, I'm going to expose you to how we do that. So again, you need to know, though, what you're selling and in order to allow me to show you how to sell it. And as we go on, then again, it appears here in a size that, again, hopefully you can read it much better. And again, we're going to talk about these individual pages in much more depth next week and how we're going to use them. Again, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do some studying, because on these pages here, all the benefits that I've been discussing with you up to this point and how we're going to present those to the client and how we're going to make this sale happen because of these benefits. And again, as you can see, it's quite in depth. Again, what we've done here, this is simply a term illustration with the quality of life benefits. But I know, even looking at it today, if you haven't had the opportunity to look at it in the past, that once you look at it that way, and we talk about the basics of going this way with just a number and an amount, how much further we've progressed in what we're going to do today as we take them to the point of going through this presentation. Now, based on that, at this time, Barb, if you could throw up our second polling question, please. And again, this is a good question for you, trying to see where we're getting at this point. Participation, if you would, please. Looks like I've got a good attendance here today and actually have 100% of you paying attention. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this system allows me to see, kind of like when you walk away from me, maybe open up another screen on your computer, maybe you're making another call. We can actually identify that's going on in the background. But this morning, thank you all. It seems like I've got a good attentive class. And now with about 70% of the votes in, I think we can go ahead and close our poll this morning. And basically, again, our question was, have you had an opportunity to go ahead and schedule an appointment based on the information that we've shared thus far? Approximately 30% of our attendees today have scheduled appointments, and the balance have not. So we're making some headway, and we hope to be able to assist the 30% of you to make that sale soon, and for the other 70%, again, to get you to the point where your knowledge and your comfort zone is such that you can go ahead and make that appointment and make things happen yourself. Okay, so having completed a little bit of information here on Thomas, but again, saving it for a much deeper fact in the future. Again, a little bit more disclosure. Again, we're going to review this in depth. And again, thank you. I already knocked out that question. So we're rolling over now back to Louise. So again, with Louise, we're going to take the necessary steps as we did with Thomas. We're going to work with the WinFlex web. in order to make this illustration happen so that we have a qualified illustration that's current. Another point of interest with the WinFlex Web, the nice thing about it is the software is always up to date. I remember in the old world where every time I would go on a carrier's website, I would have to update my software. I'd have to let it run for a certain period of time because with life insurance and benefits, especially in the permanent products, based on the interest rates, things can change overnight, and there's whole product changes going on in the background that I wouldn't be aware of until I reran that update. Well, again, by using the WinFlex Web, those carriers are participating in that, and overnight, while we've got our thoughts on other matters, the background is making those presentations current. So when we get in there and open it up and run it, everything is up to date. You're never off base. So that's a wonderful benefit, again, of having the tool. So what we did is, again, we went in there and we input Louise's information. And once we had completed that, we were able to determine again, for this lady we have at age 33 with a preferred non-tobacco rating, a $750,000 death benefit, and a guaranteed premium amount. Again, too, part of the professionalism of using that tool, when you do set it up, it's going to have you, the agent, there. And in this case, as you see, my name's going to be on these as we go through. So will it be with yours as well. So again, the quality of the professionalism in your representation of whatever carrier it is always going to bring it in to show you as the person of interest. So here we are again with Louise. And again, we've got a 20-year product here. And again, it's going to get into detail that we can't really see due to the size, but we did do what we said we wanted to do. We've got a death benefit premium. We've got a waiver of premium benefit. We've got a children rider. I chose to add the child rider to Louise's case because, number one, she's younger. Number two, her face amount was less, so that it had a determining factor in how these premiums were going to be judged in order for me to meet the target. So in other words, I did run it with the child benefit under Thomas, but I felt that it was a better product for me to present adding it to Louise's package. So it doesn't matter which one you do it on. I did it strictly for cost factors. Also, as you're doing this, as you go forward, just another note of interest and help, when you do a child benefit rider, and in this case what we ran was 25,000, which is 25 units. That's how it's done on the pages. Anyway, don't do it on both a husband and a wife. Don't try to do 12 on one and 13 on the other, because the insurance company is not going to allow it. They're only going to allow you to add a child rider to one of these two cases. So keep that in mind. So we added the entire 25,000 for these children onto Louise's case. So again, we've got her. We've got a monthly premium established. We'll talk again in depth about the policy. We'll talk about some more terms next week in our studies. Again, I want you to take the time in advance to use that bundle, to go in there and be prepared to present this information. Actually, you need to know this so well that when you turn this around to the client, and we'll talk about this next week in the presentation, so that they're looking at it while you're discussing it, even though that document is upside down to you. So in other words, you know it so well that as you're seeing the highlights of what you're presenting, you're going to know the content that's there. That's the studying you need to do. So again, the same thing with Louise. We're going to have the page-by-page description of a term product with benefits not normally available under term, requiring us to have a true illustration to be able to perform our job, not only explaining what those benefits are and sharing them with them, but assuring the insurance company that we know our business well enough to be the professional out there selling their product, which is why in this case, as I mentioned earlier in presentations, American General is going to require you to do a little quick certification on their website, not a big deal, that just validates, takes you through these benefits, that helps you understand them better and lets them know that you do know what you're bringing out to your client's home. So again, as we look at Louise's information, again, you're going to take that opportunity to use that attached bundle, and you're going to get in there and print these out, and you're going to read them, and you're going to study them, and you're going to get ready for the questions. So, third polling question, if you would please. And this one, of course, happens to do with, have you started to do the contracting with this particular carrier? Or are you already contracted with them? So if you'll take the time, give me an answer, yes, no, maybe so. And as we're moving along here, again, participation is pretty strong. Always interesting on these presentations. People do sometimes drift a little bit away from me and do pick up that phone or do something else on the side. But once we get into the polling, we're right back now with a total 100% participation of attendance. And again, at this point, we can go ahead and we'll close this poll off. And it is a very interesting number for me to find out that we have almost half of the people on the presentation this morning already contracted with American General. And we have the balance of those not yet contracted, or some of them in the process, because there is a process involved. So there's good balance. But basically over half of you are already or will be contracted with them soon. It is a situation with American General that you can get your process of paperwork started. However, they are not going to actually appoint you until you have business. It's just part of the structure of the way things work. But again, that's the purpose of our work. We're going to get that application together, and we're going to get you appointed with that company, even though you haven't got that appointment at this point. So again, thank you for your participation in the poll and for also having the initiative to go out there and do the contracting work. Now, what we're going to do next, and I'm going to ask Barbara if you want to add the second part of our bundle of information. And again, this is all going to be there for you guys to work with. But in our second handout, what we're going to do, and we're only going to do it briefly this morning, is we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of the quality of life. And again, as I mentioned, some agents like to have the multicolor professional printed brochure. Nothing wrong with that. You can get that brochure off of the website from American General once you are a participating agent. The benefit that you'll have, you can get that from us if it's prior to your appointment stages. We can go ahead and send it, but you won't need to if you'll go ahead and take the time to download the information that we've shared with you today on an attachment, and that is your quality life brochure. Now, what you're going to find when you download it, and again, we're going to talk about that in greater depth next week because it is actually part of the steps involved with presenting and selling. I've only going to present to you a little bit of it today. I've kind of like pulled parts of it apart and said, hey, this is a highlight issue. But again, next week, we're going to look at the entire brochure in our presentation in a step-by-step manner. So for today's purposes, again, one of the pages that I've chosen to use is acknowledgement that one size doesn't fit everyone. So as is the case for life insurance, one product, one carrier is not necessarily going to be the best fit. But again, what we've done in our work today and our future presentation work is narrowed it down for the client. Also, briefly, we touch on convertibility. Again, when you do your homework, you do your study of that life insurance bundle, you're going to find additional detail, but it's right here in the brochure. That would be something, again, we'll talk about that next week. We also pulled another page, customizing it to fit the life insurance plans. Great pages to work with because, again, in our client's particular case today, we do have a husband and a wife, husband with a young boy, I think 5 years old in our presentation module, and a daughter that's about 7. But again, the pages kind of fit, not always, but they fall into place. So customizing a plan, again, that's going to protect not only mom and dad, most importantly, they'll protect these children. And again, we're going to go through next week some of the different options. And we'll be able to do that when you're working with these clients. Here's an example, something for that single mom you're working with. Here's the family that's protecting that home and the purpose of that insurance. An older couple looking beyond those most important years of child rearing, but future times as well. Talking about the availability of the benefits of insurance, obviously most importantly when families need it the most. Also, that's where we're going to get into great depth with those living benefits. We're also going to talk about the product itself, the flex term, quality of life. And then we can put a little twist into it when we're talking in the presentation if we choose to work with what's the Guaranteed Plus, which is basically getting into that UL product, the Guaranteed UL. But this might just be planting a seed for future reference. We're also going to run through, we're going to run through some examples next week, talking about the plan and the benefits and how those benefits can be exercised. Because again, you as an agent are going to need to understand that when you're working and presenting in that client's best interest. And then again, we're going to go into some disclosures. And again, that's not only to protect the client, but it's to protect you as an agent. As you're aware, there's many things going on in our industry. The input of the government especially into the annuities business, the fiduciary responsibility of agents in the best interest of the clients. And of course, we're just getting ahead of ourselves, but we're going to make sure that we do the right disclosures of the information and the benefits that we provide to these clients now, as we will do as well in the future. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the benefits that we've enhanced this with. That would be that premium waiver. We've talked about it in depth, and we've talked about the child life insurance and how that's going to work. So again, I can only ask you to please take the time, go ahead and download those attachments we've made available to you today, because next week, again, we're going to present this to a family, and we're going to do it in such a fashion again that it's going to allow us to get to that closing situation and to make those sales. So let's take a look at this point and see if I have any questions. Okay. And let's see here. We have quite a few questions, which is nice. So I'm thinking Social Security Administration needs to explain how group life insurance policies you enroll into with previous employers need to be reconciled or converted. Is this explained in Social Security audits? I'm not sure exactly where we're heading with the question, but I will say that again, we're going to talk about the benefits of insurance, the guarantees. I'm not specifically going to talk about life insurance from a group standpoint, although that's certainly a necessary learning state. And I guess, oh, I see what it is. It's going to into the effect that the agent is actually asking why um, the benefits that we're talking about today aren't better explained um, to an employee when it's coming on an employer-based product. And again, I have to acknowledge, and the agent is correct, oftentimes those benefits aren't truly explained and those benefits aren't truly understood uh, because the people that are representing the human resources or personnel probably don't understand them themselves. So it's difficult for them to go ahead and explain them. And the agent that went in there and did the group sale, we're getting into a whole nother factor here. But he's going to be, or she's going to be working with a multitude of people that she's just trying to do what the employer has given her instruction to do within his guidelines. And probably the proper amount of time is not taken to really explain how those benefits work. But yes, it is important. And when you run into a client that has group life insurance, you do need to have them go back to their own personnel in that office and find out, you know, how those benefits will affect them should they no longer be in the employment of that employer. Thank you for the questions, Mr. Patel, and we will go on and see what else we've got here. And seems that Mr. Patel has a lot of questions with Social Security. So I think what we'll do is we'll make sure that we have one of our representatives here at Messer contact you to better understand what problems you're facing with the clients that you're working with. One of the agents has also asked me if I could use some coffee, but I'm wide awake, Steve. Thank you. And actually, I'm enjoying a cup of green tea because I like green tea. All right, and thank you, Thomas. I see your question here. For the past webinars that we've taken, what you'll need to do again is go over to the Messer Financial website, www.messerfinancial.com. Go to the homepage. At the very top of the homepage in the red banner, you're going to find Agent Resources as one of the files. So you want to open up the Agent Resources. When you do, you'll see the Messer Learning Center. So you want to open up the Messer Learning Center. And what you want to do is click on Just Added. And Just Added is going to give you all the webinars we've done this year back to the 15th of March. So that's where you can catch up. Again, if you need additional support and you need help with that matter, please do give us a call here at the Messer office at the 800-568-9649. You can be put through to either our producer services department or one of our marketers will gladly take the time to guide you through. The webinars that are posted are about a week behind. So yesterday it was posted, the one that we did the previous week on WinFlex. So everything should be there current. And today's presentation should come up again sometime next week. Hope that helps, Thomas. And then one of the agents has a question regarding the difference in the living benefits as presented with the Transamerica product. And Steve, those are well-founded questions. Hopefully I'm going to answer that a little bit better next week when I go into the actual benefit review that we'll have available on these products. Yes, there is a reason why I've chosen to work with the American General Partners living benefits illustrations, and why I'm kind of strongly suggesting that appointment be through that company, because I do feel that of all the benefits offered at this time for the term products, that the best living benefits available are through that American General quality of life product. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. And again, I don't know that Mr. Patel could have had any time to even listen to what I was talking about, because all he has is question after question, monologue after monologue going through here. And I apologize as I'm feeding my way through. We will certainly have to get back to him and answer all of this information. And let's see. Okay, and we're getting some questions that it's actually pertinent to the riders as an example for the children. And thank you for the question, Richard. Please do take the time, download the presentation and download the brochure. And again, the information, the questions you've asked are available right there. So you should have them available. And again, it's going to be part of everyone's homework. And can you stack the examples and afford, and we put them to promote later? Cynthia, again, next week we're going to actually do the presentation, and based on the information, I'm going to show you how to not only have designed the product, but how to produce the sale to fit not only the needs, but the budgetary requirements that the client gave us to work with. Some good humor coming in now that one of the agents has recognized the fact that we had an agent on the phone that seemed to be asking more questions than listening, and that again, the first step in being a good agent is to listen and talk less. And I wish I could do that from my side today, but I can't. If I don't talk, you can't learn. And again, a question's coming up of why I might lean more favorably towards the American General Partners program. And again, I think you'll see more of that, Michael, when I actually go through the benefits in our review with our client next week. And then we have some questions on a non-med versus a fully underwritten. Basically, Michael, a non-med product is not going to require an exam for blood or for urine. However, in the background, the company is going to be looking at the MIB report for the medical information. They are going to pull an RX report to recognize what medications they may be on, and they are going to pull the driver's licensing information to see if there's any history of problems related to that. So there is background work being done. It's not what we could call a fully underwritten product, but in most cases, it's going to have a limited face amount. And we can talk about that in future work, the three companies that I would guide you towards for non-medical needs. And it's going to be three different companies based on the benefits and the face amounts that they have available. Okay, I think with all that in mind today, I'm going to close off our presentation this morning. Again, I'm going to say thank you to everyone for being a part of it. I'm going to ask that you go ahead and today's basic homework, again, is to download the attachments, have the information available next week, and see how we present this to the client to get us in the selling and asking for the order situation. Again, I'm going to ask, if you haven't done it, do an illustration on yourself, on your family, make-believe client, or even better yet, hopefully a real client that you do find that you're able to go out and do this with and make a presentation and make a sale. So until next week, Mark Hunter signing off. Thank you again for your work with us this morning, and we'll be talking and seeing you soon.